Hey guys, this is Samantha and S.E.X.
It's your boy Remoy George Philip Thiefer.
And this is Masculinity. Welcome back.
Yo, swish, swish. Like, I tried to play ball the other day. It's like the beginning of the summer, and I fucking sucked. I hate to say it. And I'm being honest, because I'm usually pretty baller. And this dude had this, like, shitty street ball, and it was super aired up, and the sun was in my eyes, and I want every excuse possible for why I sucked.
You didn't wear any sunglasses? Do you wear sunglasses when they play basketball?
Hell no. That's mad corny,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
I look fantastic in sunglasses.
oh, you know why? You think you look so good because you've seen yourself on camera now. You know where Samantha and S.E.X has seen herself on camera? The VRT app.
So we're going to go ahead and just say it. Vert is out, you guys. Let's not focus on my narcissism. Let's just focus on the fact that
she loves seeing herself, so maybe you'll love seeing herself.
Yeah.
You know what else they can see? They can see us doing this really awkward thing that we've managed to do, which I think very well and very constructively and thoughtfully in past seasons, which we're going to try to do this time around, and we're going to take some time with it. We're going to take a little bit of time with it.
Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about sex.
Oh, let's talk about sex, baby. You know, we should go see Salt and Pepper in concert. But yeah, you know, let's do it. Let's do it. You know, let's really commit to it, though. Like, let's spend some real constructive time talking about sex. And actually, you guys, we're not just going to spend this episode talking about sex. We're going to spend a whole module on it. So we're going to do 4 or 5, episodes on sex. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to tackle a few subjects over a series of episodes this season. We're calling them modules. We're starting with our sex module in our season 3. It's going to be a little bit more meticulous to unpack the performance of masculinity on a whole new level. So we're going to do that.
It deserves it. I think it deserves it.
Yeah. I mean, the bullshit is still going on. As long as patriarchy is alive and well, we got to keep on unpacking. So, you know, in this first module, we're going to deconstruct sex. And we're going to have a guest, Zat Baraka, help us thoughtfully explore.
The energy man. He's the energy man.
We'll talk about more energy later.
No, God, please no. Jesus
he's gonna,
Christ.
It's really, that's how we work. That's how we work, Remoy. Remoy resists the word energy.
Oh,
anyway,
Jesus.
Yeah, that's how it is. So, you know, he's going to help us thoughtfully explore how we've gendered roles when it comes to sex and how some of those roles come into the sexual experience that we all kind of go through, right? And it really comes with a hell of a lot of privilege. And we're going to talk about the way that masculine bodies, masculine energy.
Jesus Christ. You are loving this
I
right
love
now.
it. It's the best.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about how masculine bodies are used to perform masculinity. And I think that there's a real reluctance to talk about bodies and physicality when seeing how perform masculinity plays out.
Yeah, I think there's, baggage. I think there's going to be a lot of baggage that we can unpack and really bring to the surface and help us all kind of heal and reconcile all this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a guest. We're going to have a multiplicity of episodes. Some of the episodes that I'm really excited about is we're going to have an episode where we have a bunch of people on throughout the gender spectrum, just normal people, not therapists, not activists, just everyday people like you and me. And we're going to talk about gender and sex and ideas and prejudices and constructs and so on and so forth, and really unpack all that and all that baggage. And another, really exciting episode. I've been thinking about a way to describe this in a very concise, polished way. And I think
Polished,
I want to call it like ear stories for your ear pleasure. Which I think is very fitting for this module. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
It is fitting for this module.
It's really just skits. We're just gonna. We just wrote some scripts, or Samantha wrote some really incredible skits, and we're gonna have some people kind of act them out and kind of help us see in the real world experience how these ideas that we're unpacking are actually employed and how they can be maybe employed to the betterment of us all. But before we get to the rest of those episodes, and before we get to the entirety of this module, I think we really need to personally speak to why we both are really invested in this subject of sex and its relationship and our relationship to both sex and masculinity. So, Samantha, why don't you take it away?
There's always really been a lot of shame around sexuality. I used to think that I was the only one, but it turns out I got it from somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on women to be sexy but not sexual, which is really confusing, you know? And I think for a long time, I thought you couldn't be a good girl and be sexual at the same time. My understanding was always that men should pursue women, right? And I think, you know, in this show, it's been very clear, like, how that's, like, societal expectations and XYZ, but I don't think that I realized the extent of, like, how that coding is, like, embedded in, like, my ways of being physically and intellectually, like, on a real level, until I really started to think about this module and, like, how to break up and, like, really had to think about it, like, really viscerally. Like, I really understood that it was made very clear during my upbringing that relationships don't work when the man wasn't the one to pursue the woman. But I took that to include dynamics in the bedroom, right? It felt weird for me to own my own power. And by that same token, my own confidence was lacking in terms of being able to take charge. That's really not taking responsibility for the fact that I've been upholding this dynamic of my own understanding of sexuality and femininity, and definitely not taking responsibility and ownership for fulfilling my own pleasure when it comes to sex, right? Like, I'm leaving that up to my partner in a sense. So, like, consciously or unconsciously, it's directly related to upholding. Well, it's not directly related. It's directly upholding this patriarchal dynamic that exists when it comes to sex. I know, actually, the very conscious ways that I've upheld that dynamic. And these days, there's less of that going on because for the past few years, for myself personally, like, my bosses have been women. And so I'm dealing with figures of authority in a way that has been really different from the past, right? The figures of authority for me aren't definitively lined up with manhood or masculinity. But what I deal with now is performing expected femininity, which for me looks soft, it looks empathetic, it looks accommodating, and there are different ways that this can really manifest. And I'm actively working on my own sense of freedom, the same way that I'm imploring men to let go of their need to perform masculinity so that they can have freedom from themselves, right? Like, it was really important for me to say, like, I'm really looking in the mirror and seeing how I've let things happen and I've done things myself that don't align with what I say I want for myself and what I want for the world in terms of gender equity. So, you know, if my performance of femininity is playing into what's expected of a woman or a feminine person, then I'm playing right into the binary system that I'm here trying to denounce, right? And it's mostly unconscious. And, like, luckily I've had the opportunity to learn and, like, see and become more conscious of it. But typically when I think of masculinity with a K, there are very specific attributes that come to mind, right? Domination, entitlement, physicality, stoicism. Being on the opposite end of that binary system for Samantha, for me, looks like being soft, being accommodating, and that can be very conducive to the domination I say doesn't work. Those ways of being accommodating, of being soft, of lacking being assertive, for me has actually looked like accepting what some might consider like verbal abuse from someone that I loved without calling them out on it, and not even necessarily knowing that that's what it was, but also, like, not standing up for myself, because definitely in that moment it felt uncomfortable and I didn't say anything. So it's looked like being woken up for sex, even though I knew I wanted to stay asleep, and not saying anything and just, like, kind of going for it. It's looked at a lot of things, and I don't really know if I thought of them as being gendered at the time. I don't know if I thought of it definitely as being complicit at the time, but looking back, I'm checking myself on it.
So I'm going to be open. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest about this thing we call sex, and the tumultuous, awkward, challenging, and kind of, like, incredible chance I've had to learn over the last 35 years with my relationship with sex. So first off, if you don't know, I'm from Texas. I'm a good Christian boy. I was raised in a very Christian family, a conservative Christian family, being in the South, but also South Asian, very conservative. And that meant I was taught abstinence first. And, we make fun of it sometimes here in the North, but being in the South, growing up in it for like 21, 22 years, that was like, duh. That was like an ideology. It was so normal to me. It made sense. Anybody who thought otherwise or preached otherwise, they were the weirdo. They were the kind of sycophant. It wasn't me, right? And then similarly, it was taught abortion was wrong. Like, you don't have sex, and if you do, you're going to have a child, and if you have a child, you deal with it. That's your responsibility. That's your choice. That's you made that decision, irresponsible or not, and you deal with it, right? And deal with it in the one way that's possible, and that's to have this child and foster this child's life. I was also this brown kid in a place where there weren't too many brown peoples. I didn't have representation. I didn't have my family was too busy working, being an immigrant family. So I didn't have too many people like teaching me how to love myself. So I was this very insecure kid who had no real, sense of self as a kid. The reason I say that last part is because when I came to New York, that completely switched, and I turned into this dashing, young, 20-year-old brown boy in New York City, and I was just a fucking horrible D-bag of an asshole, arrogant piece of shit. And, that kind of meant that I slept around a little bit, and that whole fucking abstinence thing went out the fucking door. And, had a few partners, had a few flings, had a few girlfriends. But what does that mean when you had this one ideology of abstinence for a majority of your life? And then what does it mean when, like, birth control didn't happen, or the pull-out method was a stupid idea, and then you face a little bit of thing called maybe abortion, maybe pregnancy, maybe running a little late there. What do you do then? And as a man who's supposed to be this leader, who's supposed to make the decisions in a relationship, who's supposed to know right and wrong, and have this impetus or this sense of responsibility of truth and responsibility and valor and all, what do you do then, right? And then, being entitled to sex. You talked about being woken up for sex. What if you're that guy? What if you're taught that a woman's supposed to, heed to your every beck and call? What if you're that guy that wakes up in the night and you become that vulgar, horrible, fucking young piece of shit man who has been taught this one way of masculinity, and part of you morally thinks you're wrong, but part of thinks you're entitled to be right. Like, you're right. What about that? Right? And then, we're going to talk about this part with Zot, which I'm really excited about because it's a very uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's a conversation most men need to have and most of society needs to have. And that's this idea of, like, what if you're young and you're a vigorous young man and you having sex and and then it doesn't work? What if your little man doesn't want to get up that day, right? Or what if there's other issues that are, performance anxiety? What if that happens, and what if that becomes reality? Or what if, that's a thing that happens and you've never confronted this before and you've never been taught about it? And like Samantha said earlier, like, we don't have a conversation culturally about sex. There's more shame than there is actual healthy conversation about sex. What does that mean? What does that mean to your sense of being a man and your masculinity? How intimately tied is your erection to who you are as a man or a masculine person in this world? I've had an incredible 35 years of ups and downs and highs and lows. It's been one hell of a roller coaster when it comes to sex. But what I also learned along the way is that every so often I'd confide in a male friend or with a friend, and then I realized I wasn't alone because that friend would mirror kind of my same sentiments or my same thoughts or similar experiences. Like, almost on the nose, like the same experience. I'm like, what the hell? I'm not seeing this in TV shows. People aren't talking this out there. But yet, if I'm allowing myself to be honest and vulnerable with my boy, and he's going to be like, yeah, I know what that's like. Or shit, my dick didn't work either that night. What does that mean? And how much more honest can we be with each other once we start that kind of snowball of honesty? Especially when it comes to sex. Especially because there is so much shame and baggage. Especially in accordance with being a man and performing masculinity. Right? So I think that's why I'm so invested in this conversation, and especially when it comes to sex. It's been really an interesting, formative, learning, and honestly really lucky experience to be able to go through to learn so much, and then hopefully be able to encourage this conversation.
We're really, really looking forward to people contributing to this conversation. Like, you know, this is really an opportunity for us to get over the shame that we have on the topic. So think of it this way, like, when you're like tweeting at us and like leaving your comments on our Facebook page and like
you do that all the time. Please keep doing that.
Yeah, please. Like, you know, just know that you're actually dismantling the motherfucking patriarchy. Boom. By having this conversation, throwing a dart into the balloon of shame around sex.
What a metaphor.
Yes. You guys, we're metaphoring this season, okay?
Ooh. I want to say Yas Queen, but I fucking hate that. And it's mad corny. I so wanted to say it right there.
But you could say it in different ways. The way that I normally do that is I start with Yas, and then I start with Queen, and then I like find a way to like morph that into one. But just baby steps for one. Baby steps. So you guys, you can find us on Twitter at Masculinity Pod. That's masculinity with a K.
Hard K.
Masculinity Pod on Instagram as well, actually. With a K, Masculinity Podcast on Facebook. Please do send us your questions, concerns, suggestions at Masculinity Podcast at whoistheo.com. That is our email that will come directly to your girl. So,
holla.
Yeah.
Yo, and if you guys haven't peeped it already, we did a live show.
We did.
What? First person plural? What?
Yeah, shout out to First Person Plural Salon. That was amazing. That was like so great.
Yo, your boy Remoy was mad corny and awkward, and your girl Samantha and Remoy was fucking killer. Was she fucking fire?
So you're the best.
And you know where you can see that?
Yes.
See that beautiful live event. Oof, on the VRT.
I really need to stop with the accents. It's VRT, you guys.
Vert.
It's Vert. You know, it's like Vert. VRTapp.com.
I mean, if you've never had the pleasure of seeing our beautiful faces, or at least Samantha's beautiful face, peep it on the Vert.
Please stop talking about my narcissism. I'm sorry, okay?
You love it!
I do. I do. It's
Notice
weird.
how her voice gets a little bit lower there? I do.
It's bad, you guys. But yeah, you guys, VRTapp.com, Masculinity Pod, Masculinity Podcast, Masculinity Podcast at whoistheo.com. These are all the places that you can find us. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to send us a couple comments. Send a couple stars.
Yeah, 5 stars. That shit. Don't do a couple. Do a 5-star shit.
Do 5 stars. Yeah,
5 stars on this joint.
Like your favorite Michelin star restaurant. Just treat us like that. I'm gonna let it go. Anyway, you guys, thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Samantha and Zessie.
It's your boy Remoy George Phillip the first.
And this has been Masculinity with a K. Thank you for listening.
Peace.
Ciao.